Today I want to talk about Texas and what is on the line for some of its players at its pro day, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to talk about Texas and who needs to show out at its pro day. And it has one of the more robust pro days of anybody that is holding them. And virtually everybody is holding them because we're having a virtual NFL scouting combine. For those of you that don't know, there were 323 players invited to the NFL Combine, but there is not going to be one in a centralized location that is usually Lucas Oil Stadium, where we have a week-long event that has rotating through all of these players at all of these positions that go through some really rigorous testing. That is probably the part of this that we're going to miss the most, is the really rigorous testing in the same space. The problem that I think we're going to run into is in evaluations, we're coming across tracks that are fast and tracks that are not, and who gets to verify these times and who doesn't. Like Eric Stokes running 4.26 raised some eyebrows. I think he's fast. I think he is that fast, but I also need to acknowledge that he did that at the House of Athlete Combine and not at Lucas Oil, right? Which would have made him one of the fastest players in history. Add to that, we saw Rashawn Slater had done something of the same, right? Like at Northwestern's pro day, at 6'4", 304, he ran 4.88. For perspective there, Tristan Wirfs last year, offensive tackle, one of the first guys off the board at that position, ran 4.85, but he did it at Lucas Oil. The Texas Longhorns had 8 players that are going to go through pro day. Names you know: Tarek Black, Chris Brown, Samuel Cosme, Brendan Eagles, Sam Ehlinger, Taquan Graham, Joseph Ossai, and Caden Stearns. Now, I think of this grouping, right, Joseph Ossai has the best opportunity to break Texas's 6-year drought now of not having a first-round draft pick. Malcolm Brown in 2015 at defensive tackle went to the Patriots, right? But since then, haven't had one. And for a blue blood, that's a bad look. Like, I went and looked through the NFL drafts recent history, and I'm stretching for some people the idea of what a blue blood is just by including Texas, but there it is. Texas in 2015, right? And then Pitt in 2014 with Aaron Donald, right? You had Georgia Tech with a player in 2010. You had Nebraska. Its last one is 2011 with Prince Amakamura. My goodness, I didn't know Nebraska was still that down, but it just goes to show you. And then Minnesota, Lawrence Maroney in 2006. Now, Rashad Bateman has an opportunity to get them there, right? And you can make an argument, of course, for Texas and Joseph Ossai, but outside of that, Nebraska's not going to have a guy, even among its 5 seniors that are going through pro day, get drafted on day one. It's just not going to happen. Maybe next year, right? Same thing, I think, could be said for Minnesota, depending on how we feel about Rashad Bateman. But looking at what Sam Cosme allows at 6'7", 309 as one of the more athletic talents in college football, I think he's got a shot here because he's as athletic as Lane Johnson was. And you remember how much people really liked him coming out of Oklahoma. And a guy that can catch a throwback pass on a lateral 22 yards deep, run past 2 dudes, and then run over a third one for a touchdown at left tackle, that's going to help you. Tarek Black, I think, has tremendous upside, but not enough to get drafted in the first round, especially in this very deep wide receiver draft. Remember, Rashad Bateman might not be drafted in the first round. Same thing with Brendan Eagles. Sam Ehlinger is going to be forever one of the most beloved University of Texas football players ever, but he ain't the player that he would need to be to get drafted in the first round. I think you know it. I think Texas fans know it. There was video of him throwing a ball 77 yards through the air, to which I said if he was accurate throwing that ball 77 yards through the air, we'd be talking about him differently. If you've been around high major football, you know that there are players on every single team who can throw a ball 70, 80 yards, but there's only a handful that can throw that thing accurately, right? That is why you get drafted where you get drafted. It's why Zach Wilson is being mentioned as the second or third best quarterback on the board. It's because he's tremendously accurate. And even if you play at BYU, which does not play a quote-unquote Power 5 schedule all the way through, you still want that accuracy. If I've seen him compared to Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray coming out of college, it all makes sense from that standpoint. Back to Texas, Caden Stearns was injured a lot, and I think that's the thing that hurts his draft stock the most, but you knew what you had in Caden Stearns coming out of high school. Never really reached that pinnacle of being the great safety that I really thought he had the potential to be, but I think he could still be a great player at the next level. Same thing with Chris Brown. They could all have the same sorts of careers that Deshaun Elliott's having, but Joseph Ossai, I think, is the guy to pin your hopes and dreams on if you are a University of Texas fan looking to end this drought, because the man had 16 tackles for loss. He had something like 11 sacks, and he's the first player in Big 12 history since Ndamukong Suh in 2009 to record at least 12 tackles, at least 6 tackles for loss, and at least 3 sacks. He had 4.5 sacks in one game. And that move from inside to outside helped him tremendously. He and Zaven Collins are two of my favorite edge guys. I got Carlos Basham rated higher than Joseph Ossai. And depending on how you want to characterize Micah Parsons, I think, yeah, you could see Joseph Ossai going to Baltimore where they have a need. But bear it in mind as we go through Pro Day and we watch for what the Texas Longhorns are going to be. You're also going to pay attention to Clemson on this Pro Day as Jackson Carman, J.C. Chalk, Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, Cornell Powell, and Amari Rodgers are all going to go through this. I doubt that Lawrence is going to throw because he worked out on February 12th. But Etienne, for me, is RB2 on the board behind Najee Harris. Coming out, I want to see him, but like you've seen the speed. He's just a tremendous player. Cornell Powell had a hell of a senior year I didn't think he was going to be able to have. And then Amari Rodgers was their dynamo at wide receiver and had been for the last 3 years, really. So bear that in mind. Clemson, Texas, Pro Days. These are the times for which you need to watch these guys because there is no NFL Combine. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.